There are a lot of fan theories about Final Fantasy VIII, and I say this with love, they're usually a bit nuts. Here are a few of my favourites. Final Fantasy VIII takes place on the same planet as Final Fantasy III. Squall dies after Disc 1, and the rest of the game is his soul trying to pass through to the other side. The monsters on the moon are bioweapons created by an advanced race of Hummingways to take over planet Earth. But one theory in particular towers above them all, becoming the definitive Final Fantasy VIII fan theory, with a devoted fan base that almost rivals the game's. Yes, it's exactly the one you're thinking of. It's time we talk about Rinoa Ultimecia. The origins of the Rinoa Ultimecia theory, often shortened to R equals U or Rinoa Ultimecia, are hard to trace. Like many fan theories, it likely began in early noughties gaming forums or chat rooms, which are no longer active. The earliest reference I could find came from this Reddit comment, which suggests that the theory first appeared online in 2004 as part of a post created by Sophie Cheshire, writing as Falsehead on GameFAQs. In Sophie's version of the theory, Ultimecia is a combination of Rinoas from different universes. After the death of a loved one, her mother in one universe and Squall in another, the Rinoas become corrupted by their own power, eventually morphing into an unrecognizable evil. Their new goal, to prevent their own death and that of their loved ones, and take revenge on humanity for the centuries of suffering endured by sorceresses. Sophie also suggests that the GF Griever is a version of Squall from an alternate universe. This Squall never made it out of the strange time compression limbo from the end of the game, and is warped by future Ultimecia into her loyal weapon. It's really interesting to look at such an early version of the Rinoa Ultimecia theory, and see what elements persevered and which ones were left behind. The most common version of the theory today suggests that Rinoa, or some version of Rinoa in the future, goes mad with power after the death of Squall. Because she has lived for so long as a sorceress, she gradually forgets her former life as Rinoa, and eventually adopts the name Ultimecia. At some point, her desire to change the past and prevent the death of Squall warps into a desire to control time and prevent her own demise, at which point she travels back in time using Junction Machine Eleni to destroy the boy prophesized to kill her, her own knight, Squall Leonhardt. So that's a brief summary of the theory itself, but the thing about Rinoa Ultimecia is that it developed a life of its own beyond just being a fan theory. It is an incredibly controversial topic among Final Fantasy VIII fans, and it only becomes more divisive with time. But what is it about this specific theory that causes such a great divide, and creates such strong emotions among Final Fantasy VIII fans on both sides of the argument? Well, in my opinion, it all comes down to one issue: betrayal. Those who believe in the theory will often say they depend on its existence to enjoy the game, and as a result have adopted the idea that it is, essentially, canon. When Yoshinori Kitase seemingly debunked the theory in 2017, many deeply upset fans claimed that they were no longer able to enjoy Final Fantasy VIII the same way. For a lot of these people, R equals U fixes the game. If Rinoa Ultimecia, then it provides the latter with an actual backstory. Even better, a deeply tragic, borderline Shakespearean one, and a satisfactory explanation for things like Griever and Ultimecia's obsession with time. With this theory, ambiguous plot points are turned into intentional Easter eggs, transforming flaws in the storytelling into hidden clues, leading players down a rabbit hole to uncover a hidden mystery hiding just beneath the surface. Without this deeper meaning, the game's story, to many, is too flawed, the ending too simple, and the villain too boring. For those who had been introduced to Final Fantasy with Final Fantasy VII, which has a lot of dark, shocking twists, this lack of grit, or cold hard realism, could be seen as a letdown. But Final Fantasy VIII was the new representative of Final Fantasy, the next great adventure in the series. If it wasn't perfect, then it meant the hours playing the game The months waiting for the game to launch, the weeks spent replaying the demo and the trailer had all been for nothing. For these fans, Rinoa being Ultimecia isn't just a theory, it's a lifeline, a way of holding on to the game's greatness. That's why so many people need to believe in Rinoa being Ultimecia. Without it, they would have to admit that they might not have enjoyed the game at all, and that, in and of itself, would be too great of a betrayal for many to bear. But if the game requires a fan theory to be considered good, it suggests that the game itself was not. But not everyone believes that Final Fantasy VIII needs fixing, or finds Rinoa Ultimecia to be an acceptable fix to the game's story. Those who dislike the theory also see it as a form of betrayal, this time a betrayal of the characters that they hold dear. If Squall really is dead in the future, and Rinoa really is destined to become Ultimecia, it means the happy endings they both achieved at the end of the game were only temporary, and that the real ending for both of these beloved characters who suffered so much throughout the game is to be trapped in an eternal time loop of death and grief. For those who resonated with the characters, perhaps saw something of themselves in their journey and found hope in their happy ending, a theory that rejects such an ending is both unnecessary and unacceptable. To be honest, I don't think there will ever be a satisfactory answer that will settle this debate for good. Not even Square Enix themselves are sure if it's canon or not. Kitase had never heard of Rinoa being Ultimecia until his infamous debunking interview, but seemed to somewhat walk back his remarks in a live stream a year later, where he said that while he had not intended to include it in the story, his co-writers possibly did, and just never informed him, so he could therefore not rule out the possibility. As to whether or not I believe that Rinoa is Ultimecia, well, I believe that the stories that resonate with us the most are the ones that allow us to fill in the gaps with our own imagination. To me, the Rinoa is Ultimecia theory says more about us as fans than it does about the game, about why we use the stories we love to cope and understand and escape, about why we need a story to make sense, or why we need a happy ending. The theory of Rinoa and Ultimecia is the theory of us, all of us. The millions of us who played a game and found so much meaning in it that we're still desperately arguing about what exactly that meaning was 25 years later. I don't think we'll ever really know whether Rinoa is Ultimecia, but we know ourselves a little better than we did before we played the game. And maybe that's the only thing that matters in the end.